Good morning. So I'm really happy to be able to share the principles of mindful leadership with all of you.
What is my real motivation for being in a leadership role? Why do I want to become a leader? So that I can get all the recognition, I can get all the glory, or I don't really care about that. I just want to improve other people's lives.
The real guru of meditation is Pandit Dasa. He's written a book about it. He's also known as the Urban Monk. The book is called Exploring Karma, Consciousness, and the Divine.
So one of the key things about being a mindful leader is to being able to ask ourselves this question throughout our lives, not just once or twice, on a regular basis, constantly asking myself, what is my motivation for doing what I'm doing? I was a monk for 15 years, living in New York City. 2 years ago, I moved out of the monastic order, so I'm no longer a monk. After working in the finance field for a couple of years, I decided I needed to take a break and go on a meditation retreat to India. So I ended up going to India and living as a monk. I spent 6 months there, traveling around, living in a monastery with 40 other monks, waking up at 4 in the morning, meditating for 2 hours a day. Somehow I fell in love with it. Then I came back to the US, moved into a monastery in New York City, and it turns out that I ended up spending another 14 and a half years living in New York as a monk. It was the most deeply fulfilling experience I'd ever had in my life. And if it's not in the past, the mind is in the future. It's planning something all the time. Even while you're sitting and listening to me, you might be planning an email. Some of you might be thinking about, man, I wonder what the lunch menu is going to be. How many of you are thinking about lunch accidentally? Not purposely, but accidentally. Research is showing that it helps individuals become more productive. So if a bunch of people in your organization are becoming more productive and working more cooperatively, I can't imagine how that's not helping a company grow. If you're in a leadership role and you have to give negative feedback, it's like withdrawing from that emotional bank account. 2 ears and a mouth. We take it for granted because that's what we come with, right? We're being told that we should be listening twice as much as we speak. My wife complimented me on my ability to hear, and she said, wow, when she saw me putting the slide together, she said, wow, you know, your ears are always really, really open. I'm like, oh, thank you. And she said, yeah, everything goes in one ear and out the other.
We've heard all of this stuff about mindfulness, and it seems so buzzy. Explain what that is, first of all.
Basically, mindfulness means to become aware of your thoughts and emotions and come into the present moment, because most of the time we're not in the present moment. We're either planning the future or we're stuck in the past.
Yeah.
So mindfulness really helps us declutter our mind so that we can be a little bit more stress-free and a little bit less anxiety. So mindfulness helps us focus more on the present moment. It's not necessarily the circumstances around you, it's your mind that's giving you high blood pressure. We're going to explain that a little bit more. Your mind is creating fatigue. It's your mind that's preventing you from getting a good night's sleep. Like you just can't let it go. The project you're working on, or maybe the conflict you had. You're holding on to it and you're like, you can't fall asleep. You're trying, but the mind just plays it. Oh, it's an instant replay mode. You can't get it out.
So people are watching right now. I mean, they're going into their work day. What can they do right now to set themselves for a day that's fulfilled and not empty?
Start off by putting your phone away. Sit down in a peaceful, quiet place for 5 minutes. That's all you need. And start to take deep breaths. And when you're taking these deep breaths, just focus on the breath. Try not to plan anything and try not to think about the past. Just focus on the breath, filling your lungs, and then a deep exhalation, because the deep breathing in itself has a real powerful way of resetting the mind, relaxing the body, relaxing the nerves. It can also be used before you go into like a stressful meeting or something, potentially a stressful encounter. Just take a few deep breaths. We're not in control of our mind. Our mind is like a roommate, a crazy roommate that never shuts up. It's almost like you let the roommate move in without checking references. So we have this roommate and it just doesn't stop. These are some of the tallest trees on the planet, right? They're about 200 to 300 feet tall. They can go from 8 to 20 feet in diameter, and they can live for hundreds of years, and some have lived for thousands of years. What's interesting is a tree that's 200 to 300 feet tall should have very deep roots. But these trees have very shallow roots. They go from like 6 to 12 feet. And these are massive, massive trees. So how do they survive all the storms and all the challenges that come? Their roots spread out and they grab the roots of other trees. So there's an entire network of trees holding on to each other, and therefore they can weather any kind of storm. So we can learn so much just from nature, of teamwork. We don't have to just be the best one. Whereas if we learn to hold on to each other and support one another, everyone can succeed. And that's the mentality I think we want to be able to develop. So, I like to think of the mind as like our smartphone. Okay? And in our smartphone, whenever you have too many apps open, it slows the phone down, right? So you close them out. So our mind has a gazillion apps open. The food app is one of those that just can't close. It's one of those things that comes with the phone. You can't even delete it if you wanted to. So that will just kind of open. You're eating lunch, you're going to be thinking, I wonder what's going to be for dinner. And dinner, what about breakfast? So that one's always there, but the mind is always planning. And a lot of times it's planning and becoming anxious about things that may or may not happen. What if I don't make it to my meeting tomorrow? Well, if you don't make it to your meeting tomorrow, then you're not going to make it to your meeting tomorrow. Worrying about it all now and losing sleep about it now is not going to help us, right? Or for example, let's say you're stuck in traffic and you're not going to make that meeting. And you have two choices at that point. Either to give yourself high blood pressure because you're not going to make it, or remain calm. But that switch is in the mind. We actually have the power to turn that off. And that's what's called mindfulness training. So if we can appreciate more, then we really want to create a culture of appreciation and where we can actually learn to celebrate and appreciate the success of others.
And according to the Harvard Business Review, positive social connections at work produce highly desirable results.
Mindfulness can literally change your brain. According to Forbes, it makes you more productive, right? If you can clear out those apps, won't you become more focused and productive? Absolutely. According to the New York Times, it enhances creativity and memory, right? We forget things because we're stressed. We've got so much on our mind, so much on there that we don't need at the moment. According to Psychology Today, it decreases anxiety, depression, and stress. And according to the Harvard Business Review, it actually boosts emotional intelligence, gives us the ability to understand another person's perspective. We have to become that change because it's almost impossible to change someone else. We've tried changing others, doesn't work. Others have tried to change us, that also doesn't work. Not only that, we've tried to change our own habits that we've had. Right? There's habits that we have we're not proud of. We've tried to change them, and we can't even change ourselves, yet we try to change others. So be the change you wish to see in the world. That is really one of the signs of being a mindful leader.
Let me ask you another question, which is a little uncomfortable. How do we feel if somebody who maybe we're in competition with succeeds at work? We have to admit we enjoy watching other people fail, right? When someone else fails, oh, now everyone's going to see the truth. And I get to shine, I get to rise because of someone else's failure. But that's not how we want to succeed.
A paycheck is good, but it's not always enough. And if people are happier, then they'll be more productive and more positive. And that means the retention levels will be better.